Another day, another story. Tituba has become a legend, but she was all too easy to scapegoat. I am blind now. I cannot see. So ended the court appearance of the woman who kicked off the Salem witchcraft trials, Tituba, an enslaved woman who was the first to be accused of witchcraft in Salem. Welcome to Tabo Eminent Channel. She had just given some of history's most explosive testimony, a convoluted and riveting tale of a witch's coven, a devil's book and evil animals and spirits that seemed to explain away the odd symptoms that overtook a group of Salem girls in 1692. But what do we really know about the woman whose testimony sparked Salem's witch hunt? Tituba's story is as convoluted and potentially fictitious as any other part of the Salem witch trials. Even during the events of the 1690s, which led to 20 deaths, legends and rumors were common. It's hard to untangle them from a distance, and all historians know for sure about Tituba comes from the court testimony she gave during the infamous trials. What is certain is that Tituba was a woman of color, and likely an indigenous Central American, who was an enslaved worker in the house of Reverend Samuel Parris, Salem's Puritan minister. At the time, slavery in the colonies was on the rise, and the West Indies was rapidly becoming Europe's most important center for the slave trade. Reverend Samuel Parris brought Tituba in Barbados, where she had been enslaved since her capture during childhood. He brought her to Massachusetts in 1680, when she was a teenager. At some point, she is thought to have married another enslaved man named John Indian, and she had a daughter, Violet. Tituba cared for the Parris children, and Parris' daughter and niece were among the first girls who began showing strange symptoms in 1692. The girls had been playing a fortune-telling game that involved dropping an egg white into a glass of water. Supposedly, the form the egg white took in the water could help predict whom the girls would marry and show the shapes of their future lives. After the girls saw a coffin in one of the glasses, they began barking like dogs, babbling and crying hysterically. Though she apparently had nothing to do with the girls' attempts at fortune-telling, a grave sin in the Puritan religion, Tituba tried to help them. She baked a witch cake from rye meal and urine and fed it to the girls. Parris, who had already begun praying and fasting in an attempt to cure the girls of what he saw as possession, became incensed when he heard Tituba had fed them the cake. He beat her in an attempt to get her to confess that witchcraft was the reason behind the girls' increasingly odd behavior. Tituba did confess, and embellished her confession with an embroidered tale of how she had been told to serve the devil. She and the girls rode on sticks, she confessed, and a black dog told her to hurt the children. This was enough to spark hysteria in Salem. Tituba was formally accused of witchcraft, and 2 other women were accused and arrested along with her. She could not have expected to be accused, writes historian Stacy Schiff for Smithsonian. New England witches were traditionally marginals, outliers and deviants, cantankerous scolds and choleric foot stompers. They were not people of color. However, it was all too easy to scapegoat people of color and marginal members of society. Sarah Good, who was arrested along with Tituba, was a beggar who was looked down on by the town for her financial instability and her debts. Sarah Osborne lived on Salem's margins, too. She was involved in a dispute with her children over their dead father's estate and was reviled for an affair with an indentured servant. All 3 women were perfect targets for accusations of deviant, even evil, behavior. Tituba's testimony was bizarre and deeply disturbing to the people of Salem. She had seen 2 rats, a red rat and a black rat, she told the magistrates. They said, "Serve me." Tituba confessed to pinching the girls and told the court that she had signed a devil's book. The people of Salem associated supernatural practices like voodoo with people of color and Indians, and the townspeople identified Tituba as both. Her confession was enough to convince the town that true evil was afoot. As the trials spun further and further out of control, Tituba remained imprisoned in Boston. She was indicted as a detestable witch and languished in jail for more than a year. Parris refused to pay her bail. Meanwhile, more and more indictments and arrests piled up as Salem gave into a town-wide panic. Later, Tituba recanted. She told the magistrate that she had made up everything after her master beat her in an attempt to force a confession. By then, the trials had wound down and the governor of Massachusetts had ordered the arrests to stop. Eventually, an anonymous person paid Tituba's bail and she went free after 13 months in jail. Eventually, the state of Massachusetts gave Salem's accused people back their property and gave them restitution. However, notes historian Veta Smith Tucker, Tituba, an enslaved woman with no property and no rights, was given nothing. She disappeared from the historical record from that point on. Since so little is known about Tituba, her story is easy to fictionalize. In the years after the trials, she became popular in literature and law. But in reality, she seems to have been a marginal figure whose low societal status put her in the perfect position to be accused of witchcraft in a town searching for answers. The Salem witch trials of 1692 were a series of events that took place in Salem, Massachusetts, and resulted in the executions of 20 people, mostly women, who were accused of practicing witchcraft. One of the key figures in the Salem witch trials was Tituba, an enslaved woman from Barbados, who played a significant role in sparking the hysteria. Tituba was owned by Samuel Parris, a Puritan minister in Salem Village. In February 1692, Parris' daughter Elizabeth and niece Abigail Williams began exhibiting strange and disturbing behavior, including fits, screaming, and contortions. The local doctor, unable to explain the symptoms, suggested that the girls might be under the influence of witchcraft. During interrogations, Elizabeth and Abigail accused Tituba, along with 2 other women, Good and Sarah Osborne, of bewitching them. Tituba's status as an enslaved woman and her outsider status likely made her an easy target for suspicion. Tituba initially denied the accusations but later confessed to practicing witchcraft, likely under duress and coercion. Tituba's confession fueled the mass hysteria and paranoia that gripped Salem Village. Her testimony, along with the accusations made by other afflicted girls, led to the arrest and trial of numerous people accused of witchcraft. The trials and executions that followed were based on spectral evidence, hearsay, and superstition, rather than concrete proof of any actual wrongdoing. It is important to note that Tituba's exact origins and fate remain somewhat mysterious. Some historical accounts suggest that she was of African or indigenous descent and had been enslaved in Barbados before being brought to Massachusetts. After the trials, Tituba's fate is uncertain. Some sources suggest that she was released from jail and eventually free, while others suggest that she remained enslaved for some time. Tituba's role in the Salem witch trials has been the subject of much historical research and speculation. Her story highlights the deep-seated fear and prejudice of the time, as well as the vulnerability of marginalized individuals in the face of societal unrest and hysteria. Tituba's perspective. Write a story from Tituba's point of view, detailing her life before and after the Salem witch trials. Explore her background in Barbados, her experiences as an enslaved woman, and her thoughts and emotions during the trials. This perspective could provide a unique insight into the events and shed light on the personal struggles she faced. The Trial of Tituba. Create a courtroom drama centered around Tituba's trial. Explore the legal proceedings, the arguments presented by both the prosecution and defense, and the role of race and social status in the trial. Delve into the emotions and tensions of the courtroom, highlighting the complexities of the case and the injustices faced by Tituba. The aftermath. Write a story focusing on the aftermath of the Salem witch trials and its impact on Tituba's life. Explore how she coped with the trauma of the trials, the challenges she faced as a free woman, and her efforts to rebuild her life. This story could also examine her relationships with others in the community and how the events of 1692 continued to haunt her. Tituba's legacy. Imagine a modern-day descendant of Tituba who discovers her connection to the Salem witch trials. Explore how this discovery affects their identity and sense of belonging. Delve into themes of ancestry, cultural heritage, and the enduring impact of historical events on future generations. The friendship between Tituba and her accuser. create a fictionalized account of a friendship between Tituba and one of the young accusers, exploring the complexities of their relationship. Highlight the dynamics of power, fear, and manipulation, and delve into the psychological aspects of how accusations were made during the hysteria. This story could provide a nuanced perspective on the interactions between different social groups in Salem Village. Tituba's Secret Coven. Explore a fictional scenario where Tituba secretly practices traditional spiritual beliefs from her native Barbados. She forms a clandestine coven with other marginalized individuals in Salem Village, seeking solace and empowerment. As accusations of witchcraft spread, Tituba and her coven must navigate the dangerous terrain of secrecy while trying to protect themselves from the hysteria gripping the town. Tituba and the Witch Hunt Detective set the story in the present day, where a historian or detective becomes obsessed with uncovering the truth about Tituba and the Salem witch trials. Through meticulous research and perhaps a touch of supernatural assistance, they delve into centuries-old documents, uncover hidden secrets, and gradually unravel the mysteries surrounding Tituba. This story can blend historical fiction with elements of mystery and intrigue. Tituba's redemption. Imagine an alternate history where Tituba is acquitted of the charges against her and becomes an advocate for the rights of enslaved individuals and marginalized women. This story could follow her journey as she fights against prejudice and injustice, drawing upon her experiences during the Salem witch trials to challenge societal norms. Focus on her efforts to bring about positive change in her community. Tituba and the Spirit World. Craft a tale where Tituba possesses a unique connection to the spirit world. She discovers her ability to communicate with restless spirits, including those wrongfully accused and executed during the witch trials. With the help of these spirits, Tituba seeks to uncover the truth behind the accusations, providing closure to the victims' families and exposing the real culprits behind the hysteria. Tituba's Diary. Write a story in the form of Tituba's diary entries, chronicling her experiences before, during, and after the Salem witch trials. Through her intimate thoughts and reflections, readers can gain insight into her emotions, fears, and hopes. This format allows for a deeply personal exploration of Tituba's character and the historical events surrounding her, offering a poignant and immersive narrative. Remember to approach these stories with sensitivity and respect for the historical context while incorporating elements of creativity and imagination to bring Tituba's story to life. Thanks for watching. Request you to subscribe the channel.